So that's how your markets ended off the day. Let's speak about these movements now. We've got Gary Booysen, who's the Director and Portfolio Manager at Rand Swiss, joining us this evening to unpack those market movements. The day ended off quite nicely for the JSE yesterday, and we did see the Rand start to claw back some of those losses that we've had over the last few days. What did you make of today's performance, particularly because of some of the laggards that were on the market today?
That's a little bit of a reversal from yesterday's good day. So we had the all-share index closing down just over 1%. The resource index and the industrial index under all sorts of pressure. I think with the Chinese Communist Party conference still going on, everyone's a little bit skeptical, especially after that delayed GDP data around just the health of the Chinese economy. And we saw companies with links to that obviously falling aggressively. So we had the likes of Naspers and Prosus down over 6% on the day, that dragging down the industrial index. But on the financial side, it was all about banks. So the financial index up, 2.14%. Standard Bank up a massive 7.86% after releasing figures for the 9 months. ABSA, First Rand, Nedbank, all, I suppose, liking it and rising, in unison. And they're all up well over 2%, which helped the financial side of the market. On the downside, though, the process wasn't the worst. The worst was, of course, Telkom, finishing the day down 22.65%. As we had news breaking that the deal between MTN and Telkom had been, or at least MTN will be walking away from the deal to buy out Telkom.
And that was very interesting, Gary, because I think it came somewhat out of the blue. I suppose there were concerns when Rain came into the mix, but the fact that there were issues around exclusivity and Telkom only negotiating exclusively with MTN, those questions rearing their heads and MTN deciding, you know what, we're just not going to go any further with this. Quite disappointing, because the prospects of an MTN that would have become as big as it would have were quite exciting to think about, weren't they?
But I think there was always going to be antitrust problems with the deal. So the Competition Commission, I'm sure, would have had something to say about it. MTN, obviously, still our largest operator because it's got operations across Africa, a lot bigger than Vodacom. But you add Telkom into the mix, and then in the South African jurisdiction specifically, it would be by far the leader. As you mentioned in the actual update, Telkom sent an announcement. It said it wasn't in the position to provide MTN with assurances around exclusivity, and I'm assuming that's alluding to the unsolicited. I suppose it's a bid from Rain, saying that it would like to be bought out by Telkom. It was quite an interesting one, and they obviously the takeover regulation panel had to rebuke them for not following due process. So it's been a very interesting story, and I think today MTN at least yesterday, MTN just deciding this is more hassle than it's worth. And since no binding offer had been made and the due diligence hadn't yet been done, there was no a requirement for the Telkom board to take the offer to shareholders. So very easy at this stage, very early on in the negotiations for MTN to walk away.
What hasn't been a hassle, Gary, particularly for the South African Reserve Bank, is the freezing of Marcus Jooster's assets, which are coming at a lovely price tag when it comes to recouping some of that lost money. What did you make of that story? It did break last night, but everybody's kind of reacting to it throughout the day. Your thoughts on this particular one? Are you confident that we're going to see some more happen in regard to that scandal?
Well, I hope we're going to see more. So, obviously, you've covered a lot of the basics at the top of the show, but I'm very happy to see that we're finally getting some movement on this, because from my point of view, the idea of South Africa being grey listed because of sliding regulations, I think this really assists South Africa in just saying that we are going to be very tough on fraud and any sort of accounting irregularities will be punished. So I think that's good, and certainly there's been a lot of pain over the last 5 years. The damage that this kind of corporate scandal does, not just to South Africa's reputation, but to the investors in Steinhoff as well, was significant. So it's at least good to see some justice being meted out.
Absolutely. I wish we'd followed global standards around the Bernie Madoff story, Enron, where those matters were settled in about 2 years maximum. But I suppose at least we're moving, albeit very slowly. Gary Booysen, thank you always for your time. He's giving us a wrap of the markets. And he mentioned Standard Bank there. They're doing very well in 9 months because they benefited from increased loan advances and, of course, the higher interest rates that we saw throughout this year. And that is